addition and subtraction. Now, maybe some of you think, why is Raul teaching us addition and subtraction when I learned that in first grade, or I learned that in elementary school? Well, there's a slight difference what we're going to be doing here versus what we did in elementary school. In elementary school, they taught us how to add and subtract with what are called counting numbers. Now, counting numbers are the numbers starting with 0, right? 0. And then 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. to infinity. And basically, when we were in elementary school, the answers were always positive. And that's the difference. Now we're going to be dealing with what are called integers. Now, integers are both positive and negative numbers. So the positive ones are all those counting numbers that I just said. But now the integers will include those counting numbers, but also we're going to also use the numbers that are to the left of the 0. So 0, negative 1, negative 2, negative 3, negative 4, etc. to infinity in that direction. So now we have both positive and negative numbers, all right? And I'm teaching this because my students get this part confused. They get this confused when they're doing, for example, algebra problems. So I guess you can consider this as like the first step to understanding algebra. And it starts with addition and subtraction. And my students get it confused, addition and subtraction, with multiplication and division. And they get that confused because we're dealing with negative and positive numbers. And we have rules, different rules. We have a rule or a set of rules for addition and subtraction. And then we have other rules for when we're multiplying and dividing. And my students tend to get these things confused. They're adding and subtracting, and then they pull in a rule from multiplication and division, or vice versa. And so for my students, this is a very confusing part of their life in mathematics. It's getting control of the signs, okay? So I have a couple of rules. Let's go ahead and get started. So again, I already explained what integers are. That's both positive and negative numbers. Now these two are kind of contradictory. They kind of contradict each other, but it's okay. I'll start with this one. Every number has a sign, except for 0. Okay, so every number has a sign. That's important. That's very important to understand. And well, 0 doesn't have a sign. So 0 is the only one that won't have a sign. 0 is neutral. So you can't have like a positive 0 or a negative 0. 0 means nothing. So if there's nothing, you can't put a sign on nothing. Okay? 0 has no sign. But all the other ones, every number except for 0 has a sign. Okay? All right. So let's get started here with a couple of examples. Addition. So here's the first step. When we're adding and subtracting, how do we know when to add? How do we know when to subtract? We know to add when the signs are the same. If we have the same signs, then we just add the two amounts together and we keep the same sign in the answer. And that's it. Okay? All right. So here's an example. 3 and then plus 5. Well, remember what I said. Remember what I said earlier. Every number has a sign. So and when I say that every number has a sign, the sign should be to the left of that number. For example, 5 is positive because to the left is the positive. So this positive goes with the 5. So my question, I guess, would be, what sign does the 3 have? There should be a sign in front of it. There should be a sign to the left of the 3. What sign does it have? So if a number does not have a sign that is explicitly written down or expressed, like it is here on the board, it automatically takes a positive sign. Okay? So numbers that don't have a sign that's written down in front of it, it's a positive. So this would be positive 3, positive 5. And because they're the same signs, we add them together. And we just keep the same sign. They're both positive, so my answer is going to stay positive. Okay? All right. Same deal here. This is a little bit more tricky, I think, for some students. Negative 2, negative 7 is a negative 9. Same signs, add them together. You can think about this maybe like paying bills or owing money. If you owe $2 and you owe 7 more, you still owe $9, right? So it's a negative amount. You're in the hole $9, for example. Okay? So this is the first step. So how do we add and subtract? Oh, I'm not subtract. How do we add? We add the numbers or the integers when they're both the same sign. Okay? Same sign, add them together, keep the same sign. And that's it. All right, so what do you think subtraction is going to be? Being that subtraction is opposite of addition, well, you probably guessed it. Subtraction is when the signs are different. So when we have different signs, that's a clue to us to subtract. So so different signs, subtract, and we keep the sign of the larger amount. Okay, so we have two numbers, one's positive, one's negative, one positive, whatever. The bigger one will keep the sign in your answer. Okay, so here's an example. Minus 10 plus 3. They're different signs, so we subtract. 10 minus 3. It sounds funny because it's a positive 3, but it's not what we're looking at here. Again, think about it like owing money. You owe $10 and you only have $3 in your pocket. You don't want the guy you borrowed the $10 from to get mad at you, so you make a good faith or a good faith kind of thing where you say, well, I don't have the whole 10, but I'll pay you 3 right now and put it on my tab kind of thing. I mean, I'll pay you 3 and I'll owe you $7. So anyway, 10 minus 3 is 7. But because we owe more than we have, we still are in debt. We still owe money. So in other words, it basically breaks down that we keep the sign of the bigger number. 10's bigger, 10's negative, our answer's negative. That's it. All right? So we have 12 and a minus 5. But 12 doesn't have a sign. What sign does 12 have? Well, like I said earlier, every number has a sign. If it's not written down, it is automatically a positive number. Now, this is exactly like what they taught us in elementary school. 12 minus 5. And our answer is going to be positive. Why? Because 12 is larger. That's it. And we keep the sign of the larger number. Larger number is positive. Our answer is going to be positive. And when you subtract 12 minus 5, you get 7. Okay? So that's basically the fundamentals of what this is. But let's take a look at a couple of more examples. What do you say? So I'll take away this. All right. So what if I had a problem like, let's see here, 2 minus 8, I have it written down here, plus 6, plus 10, okay, minus 2, what the heck? What'll that give you? Well, there's a couple of ways to approach a problem like this when there's multiple steps or multiple operations that we have to do. Every number should have a sign in front of it, right? The 2's got a negative, the 10's got a positive, the 6's got a positive, not the best positive, but a positive. 8's got a negative in front of it, and the 2 doesn't have one, so the 2 is positive as well. Now, you can go in a linear fashion. You can take this one at a time, right? Positive 2, negative 8, different signs, subtract them, the bigger one wins the sign. And then you take that answer and you do it with the 6, and then you do that, you add or subtract depending on the signs. That answer, you add or subtract 10. That answer, you add or subtract to minus 2, depending on the signs. So that's one way of looking at it, but I would prefer all of you to do a grouping technique. What I mean is take all your positives, put them together. And then you take all your negatives, put them together in a group. In other words, we're adding the like terms. We're adding all the positives and we're adding all the negatives. And we know we can do that because they have the same sign. So numbers with the same signs, we just add them together and they keep the same sign. So let's try that out. So I have a 2, a 6, and a 10. What does that give me? They're all the same sign. I'm just going to put them together. Okay, put all the positives together. Same sign, they add together and they keep the same sign. So 2 and 6 is 8, 8 and 10 is 18. All right. Then I'm going to do the same thing with all the negatives. I'm going to put 2 underlines on those. So I have a negative 8 and a negative 2. I add them together and I keep the same sign. Okay, I add them together because they're both negative. They're both the same sign, all right? So we add them together, 10, and we keep the same sign. They're both negative, so the answer is going to be negative, all right? So here is the last step. I have to decide whether I need to add them together or whether I need to subtract them. Now, how do I know that? Right? Well, that's the crux, that's the clue, that's the important part. In this case, we have to subtract them because the signs are different. So we subtract them, and we'll keep the sign of the larger amount. Which number is larger? 18, positive. So I already know that my answer is going to be positive, okay, because 18 is the bigger number of the two. When I subtract this, 18 minus 10, I get 8. All right, so that would be the final answer. And I prefer all of you to be practicing this idea of grouping the ones that are kind of the same. In other words, in this case, we're grouping the ones that are positives, and then we're grouping together all the negatives, and then at the end, we put them together and see what we get. Okay? I'll do one more. Minus 2, not the prettiest 2, but it's a minus 2, plus 5, plus 2, minus 8. Okay? We can do the same thing here. Okay? We can do the same thing. We can group together the ones that are similar. Group the positives together, group the negatives together. Right? If we group the positives, that would be 7 positive. And if we group the negatives, that would be 10 negative. Do you see that? All right, so the positives plus 7, right? And that's just putting together these two, right? Add them together, keep the same sign. We add them because they are the same sign. And same thing with the negatives. The negatives are both the same sign, obviously. And we're going to add them together. 8 and 2 is 10, and they keep the same sign, which is negative. Okay? And then here would be our last step. We have to combine these two together. And if you think about paying bills, you can ask yourself, will I come out on top of the bill, without owing any money, maybe having a little extra money in my pocket, or will I come out owing money, like I'm still in debt? And in this case, it's like we have $7 in our pocket. That's the positive money, and then we owe $10. That's a negative amount. So if you put it together, you'll still owe money, okay? But different signs, we subtract, so 10 minus 7 is 3. And we keep the sign of the larger amount. In this case, 10 is the bigger number, 10 is negative, our answer is negative, okay? So this is the first step. When we're adding and subtracting, the signs, practice this. It's going to be different when we multiply and divide, okay? So just hold on tight. I think when we get into order of operations, we'll put all this together and really look at it like a big picture.